welcome to the Epic Vibe Show with Dr. Vibe, with yours truly, Dr. Vibe, Dr. Stephen Schwartz. And I want to introduce to you today my special guest, Clifton Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Yeah, we've been here working hard all day, haven't we?
We have. We've been working on launching your pitch deck and getting everything going.
It's such an incredible thing. We've been working for quite a while at this experience, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit about what we're up to at the moment and really where we're going with this company. And the topic of today, I shared with you what we're going to be talking about, right?
I would love to find out more. I have a short-term memory.
Okay. Well, we're talking about where ancient wisdom meets modern science. And that's been...
Oh, that sounds like a good topic. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's talk about that.
When I invited you to come on, you're one of the most, I feel, inquisitive people that I know. And you're also one of my really dear friends and core team, really helping me launch bioharmonic technologies in this new incarnation. And so when I was thinking about who I wanted to come on and be part of this experience, you're one of the top people.
Thank you.
So we're here. Plus, we always have a lot of really interesting conversations. I refer to you as my financial shaman.
I love that. I mean, it's a really great title. You know, part of my background is I am an MBA from Columbia and started a venture capital club there. Been a repeat entrepreneur. But I started out actually at Deloitte to earn my CPA. So
what's Deloitte?
Deloitte is an accounting firm. It's one of the big four. Beautiful place and much love and much memories there. But definitely, you know, I think the shaman part definitely speaks to me. You know, and that part was fairly sort of corporate finance, and I'm definitely a finance shaman, I would say, and more so.
You know, it's weird when people refer to themselves. I'm always skeptical when people refer to themselves as shaman, but it's one of those...
You gave me the title. So
I gave you the... No, but I'm saying it's okay if I'm giving you... I refer to you as... And everybody that knows you said, oh my God, that's so Clifton. And people that know me know that if anybody needs a financial shaman, it's me. You know, I get referred to as a lot of different things. You know, I'm the wizard, and some people call me a shaman. I prefer the word alchemist. I feel like I'm in more resonance with the term alchemist than I do shaman. And I think the number one reason why that is I've been to South America and I've worked with some really incredible indigenous shaman. And in fact, they were some of my early experiences, like back in 2004, coming back from, venturing down to Peru. Is it okay if I share that?
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
I feel like this all comes full circle about shamanism, and also it's kind of on track with our topic today.
Gotta get ancient before we get modern, right?
Gotta get ancient before we get modern. Exactly. In 2004, it was a really powerful year for me. I had purchased a holistic center. Actually, it was one of my first mentors. She ran an allergy center, a holistic allergy center, and she moved to Australia to open up like 4 of these holistic centers. And I bought her Denver clinic.
Okay.
And just randomly, I ended up, or not randomly, because there's never any randomness in the universe, right? Synchronistically is probably the better word.
Sure, that sounds good. You synchronistically?
I synchronistically receive a letter in the mail about this conference going on down in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it was Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Dr. Todd. I'm not sure. Have you ever heard?
I know the first two.
Okay. That's exactly it. That was exactly what I thought. I knew Greg Braden and I knew Bruce Lipton, but I had not heard of Dr. Todd, but they had these bios. And for those of you who don't know Greg Braden, Greg Braden, I call him the Indiana Jones of consciousness, and he's written many books, and he's a Hay House author and leads conferences all over the world, take people on journeys, really exploring consciousness and truth, and he's been around for a long time. And Bruce Lipton, he wrote a book called Biologies of Belief. That was his first book, and I remember I just felt called to be there, and there was a bio about this other doctor, Dr. Todd Olivosky. And
what was the last name?
Dr. Todd
Olivosky?
Olivosky. I don't know if actually, I'm not even sure if that's pronouncing his name.
Okay.
He's known as Dr. Todd.
Okay, so Dr. Todd. All right. So who's this Dr. Todd guy?
Well, I started reading about his bio, and it talked about how he was using lasers for curing AIDS in Africa. And,
oh, wow.
And that's what I said. I said, oh, wow. This is exactly the conversation. And I said, I'm really interested in going to meet him and to check this out. I went down to this conference in Santa Fe, and there was like 700 people there. And it was a 4-day conference. And Bruce Lipton lectured essentially his entire book of Biology and Belief over those 4 days. Greg Braden did his thing, and Dr. Todd just did his thing. And what that means, I mean, is he sings whale songs. Like he channels whale songs.
Can you sing a whale song? What does a whale song sound like?
I'm going to do my best Dr. Todd impersonation.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's like down Periscope. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but one of the characters went around singing like a whale. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
I think that's more like a dolphin.
Well, I didn't know you were such a,
That just came out of nowhere. Really incredible though, and I got to know him, and a lot of things happened over that time.
Mm-hmm.
Those 4 days, we learned about sound healing. We learned about how music can affect the DNA and unravel your DNA, about feelings and the effects of feelings and your intention. A lot of really early foundational aspects. And I learned about the didgeridoo.
Oh, that's where you learned about the didgeridoo.
This was the first time that came in.
Okay.
So those of you that don't know, I play the didgeridoo. And I've been playing it ever since this conference in 2004. I had this very strong download that I was supposed to play a didgeridoo. And so within a month of leaving there, a few weeks, I was at a store in Denver, Colorado, and I was checking out, and there was a bin of like $35 didgeridoos, and I was like, oh, and I'll take one of those, and obviously I couldn't get anything out of it.
Not your common impulse buy, right? Pack of gum, a little mouth freshener, a didgeridoo. I don't know if that really is an impulse buy.
That's pretty much what it was. It was a total impulse buy. And following that, I ended up getting an email that there was a didgeridoo playing Peruvian shaman coming to Denver.
Sorry, can you repeat?
A didgeridoo playing Peruvian shaman.
Okay, that's a mouthful, especially for like my Deloitte people, Can you break that down? A didgeridoo.
Yeah. Peruvian shaman.
Okay.
Coming to a place where I would go for conscious events all the time. And
what does a didgeridoo Peruvian shaman look like?
Well, so we're the same age.
Okay.
So in 2004, I think I was in my early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know.
I mean, is he just like a normal dress? Yeah, you
didn't
know.
Peruvian.
I don't know either.
So he's dark skinned. He's half American. He's a dear friend of mine. Manu, if you're watching this, I miss you, and I hope to reconnect with you very soon.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Well, he'll be here. I think he's coming here in May.
Okay.
There's a lot of stories about Manu and myself that I'm happy to share. And this was our first meeting. And I remember it was over Valentine's Day. And I went and he did this like heart opening ceremony. And I told him, I said, I just have this didgeridoo, and can you teach me how to play?
So you got a download about a didgeridoo, then you bought a didgeridoo, and now you're meeting a didgeridoo
Peruvian shaman.
Peruvian shaman.
Yes.
All in a matter of a few weeks?
Yeah, a few weeks.
So what were you thinking as you were going to go see him for the first time? You're like, this is all manifesting so fast, or is this kind of standard in the Schwartz, or?
I mean, this was 2004.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole spiritual awakening happened in 2000.
Okay.
And obviously it was coming in before that, but the major shift happened in 2000. And
so this was normal for you?
I don't think it was normal. I didn't know what unnormal was. It was just another day in life, you know? And I feel that that's, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to have a higher level of really understanding, but these were just my life that I was doing, you know? And it wasn't anything. It was just the next thing that happened. And he said to me, bring your didgeridoo and get a session from me, like buy a healing session from me, and we'll see what happens. And I said, that sounds great. Sounds great. So the next morning, I went to see him, and I sat down in his chair, and he started like chanting and playing his rattle and playing his didgeridoo over me, and he started like channeling information. And at one point, I remember he put down his didgeridoo and picked up my didgeridoo to this point, which had never had any sound come out of it, at least out of my mouth. Okay. And he starts playing it over me.
Wow.
And I remember I got chills like all over my spine. I was like, wow, like that thing, it works. The didge works. I thought I bought a defective one. And
it's never the instrument, it's always the player, right?
It's the same with these vibe systems. It's 99.9% user error most of the time here. But we try to make it what I call Schwartz proof. We want to make them so easy that if you know how to operate a tablet.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it at some of these events you've been to, and there is like really not much tech support, and the people who are operating it, you know, are definitely not ones that I would say, you know, are hardcore coders or anything. So I feel like you've really made that experience really user-friendly for the common person.
Thank you.
So it ties back to your abilities as a didgeridoo player, huh?
Well, I think it ties into the whole theme of what I'm wanting to talk about here during tonight's show, is about ancient wisdom in modern science. And this is kind of a long lead up to where I'm going with this. But he wrote down some remarks, I guess, that came through. A lot of interesting things that were brand new to me.
So
on that piece of paper.
What do you mean came through? What does that mean?
Listen, in 2004, I showed up to receive a healing session, which I don't know if I even knew what that meant, with my didgeridoo from a Peruvian shaman that played a didgeridoo.
I'm trying to keep up with you.
And I sat there in a chair, and he played over me, and at the end of it, he wrote down all these things on a piece of paper and reviewed them with me. Okay. And he said to me, you should come with me to Peru. And I said, when is that? And how much is it? And my office manager knew I went to see a Peruvian shaman, and she was waiting for me, and she's like, what did he say? And he said he wants me to come with him to Peru. And she told me if I don't go with him on that trip, she quits. And she's like, I'll run the clinic and you have to go. Wow. And so I went. And I had never been, I was in my early 30s, I had never been to South America before. I'd never been on a shamanic journey. And I remember when I was in chiropractic school, I read Celestine Prophecy. Have you ever heard of Celestine Prophecy?
Yeah. You've mentioned it before, just how profound it is. Yeah.
I just remember reading that book in chiropractic school, and a girlfriend gave it to me, and it was like another person's friend. And I remember we broke up, and she was like, I want the book back. And I was trying to read through it real quick before I gave it back to her. And I told another chiropractor friend of mine, student of mine, and he said, that book seems to find you at the right time. And it was, if you haven't read the Celestine Prophecy, it's basically about a gentleman that goes on this shamanic journey into Peru and goes to all these sacred sites and has all these and is unveiling this prophecy called the Celestine Prophecy. And I remember saying, wow, it'd be really cool to go to Peru someday. But long story short, I end up in a place called Puerto Maldonado, which is in the southeastern jungle part of Peru near the Brazilian border.
Okay.
And I ended up flying from Denver to Houston, Houston to Lima, Lima to Cusco, and then Cusco to Puerto Maldonado, where we flew into this, thatched roof kind of jungle little airport. Never seen anything like this before. I mean, this was a first. And I was with essentially a group of strangers that I had not met before. They were from the United States. But not people that not friends.
Now, was Manu with you there?
Manu was leading the trip.
Okay. At least you had someone that you had met for at least 2 hours.
Yeah, that's about it. That's the extent of it. But there was about 20 of us, and we got on a boat, and we then went up the Urubamba River, which is like a very south tributary of the Amazon River. This is way down in the southern. Right, and we were there for 4 hours, and we went to this eco lodge. It was run completely off of solar, and we got
2004.
Yeah,
running off of solar. Wow. Okay, that's cool.
And Manu said, "Rest up, come back tonight. We're going to participate in an ayahuasca ceremony." And I had never even heard those words before.
This is what happens when you buy that $35 didgeridoo. Give a mouse a cookie, and evidently you're doing an ayahuasca ceremony in Chile.
In Peru.
In Peru.
Yes, we were talking about Chile earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Santiago, Chile.
Okay, sorry. So give Schwartz a didgeridoo, and soon you'll find him in an ayahuasca ceremony.
In Peru.
In Peru. Okay.
And very interesting, because at this point, like you asked me, is this a day in the life of Dr. Schwartz? And maybe so, but a lot of really interesting things happened. Because I remember going into my little shack that I was sharing a room with this guy, and he would lead ayahuasca ceremonies in Hawaii, and he starts explaining to me like the chemical breakdown of it, and all the effects, and everything that's happening. And I said, that's what we're gonna do. That's the experience we're about to have. And other people were like, oh, I want to sit next to you. And I'm like, why? I've never done this before, Like, ooh, fresh. Yeah, well, none of us had done it before. There was about 5 that had taken it. And it was like the shaman, Manu. There was another ayahuasquero, is the word of the shaman that administers the ayahuasca. He's called an ayahuasquero.
Okay. And
then Manu, and then some of his friends that had taken it before. And the rest of us, about another 20 of us, were all never had taken ayahuasca before. And we were in this really surreal moment where we were on the banks of the Urubamba River in this kind of shack. And the jungle was alive all around, and we were all surrounded by candles. And we were in this room, and I was watching the shaman activate the ayahuasca. You've taken ayahuasca?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is why I'm like, yeah, tell me.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you activate ayahuasca?
Well, so this was the first time I
doubt there's a button that says activate.
This is and actually we have another person here, Dave Kamens. Have you ever participated in ayahuasca before?
Not a full ayahuasca, DMT. I've experienced DMT.
So we're going to bring you on here in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But to continue on with the story, I didn't know anything about this at all, about shamanism, other than some prior trainings. And he would sit there, and with this bottle of ayahuasca, and he started smoking what they call mopacho, which is like it's tobacco. It's shamanic tobacco.
Okay.
And he would blow it into the ayahuasca.
Oh, that's how you activate it.
And then he would start singing to it.
That's how you activate it.
All of it.
Oh, all of it's the activation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he would start singing. And he did all, and this was like an hour of his ritual of like activating this ayahuasca. And I was sitting there fascinated.
Yeah.
Because what went through my mind, because I was in practice, and I was doing a technique at the time called neuromodulation technique, which is it's a kinesiology technique for reprogramming the body. And I would do muscle testing, and I would ask the body questions, and then I would do this reprogramming. We were treating everything, like anything walked through the door. I was getting fantastic results with it. And I brought some of my tricks of the trade, so to speak, on this trip with me.
Okay.
And I watched him and thought to myself, he's doing what I'm doing, but this is like the indigenous way. Or I'm doing what he's doing, but I'm doing it like kind of palatable for Western society. But I got it, because I was talking to the body. And I was muscle testing, and I had taken all kinds of courses on like singing and toning to the body.
Okay.
And whatever it was, I was getting just this activation of remembrance and understanding, and it was really clear, like I got it.
So while you're watching the shaman smoking and singing, activating the ayahuasca, that triggered that memory in you, or?
It was just a knowing.
Knowing.
It was just a knowing, but I understood what was happening. And then we drank, and we went around and we all drank the medicine, and we started having experiences. And if you're not familiar with ayahuasca, it usually elicits a very strong visual, like hallucination. And I call it, and it's the first time I ever had taken this before. And it was, the best way I characterize it is like a soul scraper. It like literally unzips you, and it opens you up to where you are just pure energy, and it essentially scrapes your soul.
In a good way?
Well, people get well. They purge. They release, and that's why you do a diet before. It's very important. And the shaman would come up to you, and he's singing, and he's activating your chakras, and he's inducing you to purge more, and he's clearing cellular memory.
Oh, does he call it cellular memory?
No, I call it cellular memory.
Did he call it anything, or you just
He doesn't speak one word of English. And I don't know if he's even graduated high school, but he's been leading ayahuasca ceremonies for like 50 years.
Wow. And
he's one of the most wise and gentle and magical people I've ever met in my entire life. And he is my exclusive ayahuasquero. Just until recently, he was the only, I would go to Peru and work with him.
It sounds like it was meant to be.
And I had some other little experiences. I did one experience in Peru with another ayahuasquero, I had a very strong feeling about vulnerability, being vulnerable in this space, because you're so open, and you're, when the shaman's blowing in and singing to and blowing the mopacho into the medicine, he's putting himself in the medicine. And you're ingesting the medicine.
Like because he's breathing and then the air gets on it, or is there like some energetic exchange?
Energetic exchange. He's putting himself into the medicine. And then you're drinking the medicine. And then he's facilitating the clearing through you. He's a channel.
Okay, I think I follow. All right, so he puts himself in the ayahuasca that you then drink, so then he's in you, and then he helps you clear out as a channel. Fascinating. And so as this was happening, you just recognized this ancient tradition was something that you call cellular cleansing, or did...
Well, all this is becoming over time, and so interesting about this particular cycle of my time, because when I lived in Denver, especially in my early 30s, I mean, my friends, we would party, we'd go to bars all the time, and I remember leaving for this trip the day after St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So there was a huge party the day before. And I remember returning back from this trip for opening day, which is in Denver for the Rockies, which is another huge party. And where I left is not how I returned. And my friends, they were like, how was Peru? Everybody wanted to know. And we were at like a restaurant and they were buying me drinks. And I remember looking, before I left on this trip, I wrote out all these intentions of things that I wanted to, get out of going on a shamanic journey to Peru. I was very aware of what I was going on. And I was excited to go, and I wrote out my intentions. And I can promise you that of everything on that list that I wrote, nowhere on that list was that I wanted help with a drinking problem, which I never ever thought I've ever had, actually. But I definitely would put down my fair share of alcohol in my early 30s in Denver with my friends. And I remember coming back, and a lot of things happened on that trip. I mean, we drank ayahuasca, we went to Machu Picchu, I participated in San Pedro. I had a didgeridoo experience on San Pedro where it showed me how to play it.
Wow. Okay, so you had
That's
all
another
this incredible experiences, but then you came back.
I came back.
And
I came back, and I remember staring at this drink that my friend bought me, my favorite drink, a Greyhound. I love Greyhounds. If you don't know what a Greyhound is, it's vodka and grapefruit. And it was at my favorite bar, where it was like fresh squeezed grapefruit. It was
sounds like a very manly name for a drink that's quite fruity.
Well, it's grapefruit. It's not orange. It's got a punch to it. And people that know me know I'm kind of fruity anyhow.
Hey, fruity is manly. Okay?
Yeah. This was in Denver, so I remember staring at this drink and completely having zero feelings of wanting to drink any bit of that drink.
Wow.
And in that moment, I remember saying to myself, wow, cellular memory. My soul was scraped, and that part of my soul was completely cleared.
The desire to drink alcohol, or the peer pressure, or the normalization of alcohol, or just...
Maybe all of it.
All of it.
I don't know. Whatever the triggers were that was giving me a craving to want to drink, whatever it was, I couldn't access it. And
so
that was really
looking
cool.
At this drink, saying, "Why would I drink this?"
And I drank. I had a sip, and I was just like, "No, thank you." And so a lot of the work that I do, I work with addictions, and we work with. I've worked with a lot of people with drug and alcohol and substance issues over the years. And I've been to AA meetings. And they talk about how this is a continuing, how it's a disease for life. And I completely do not agree. And in my early days in 2004, I had some major awakenings of tapping into this ancient ceremony in some of the oldest jungles in all of the planet. And coming back into this modern incarnation, 2004, and saying to myself, how can I continue? How can I enhance the experiences I'm offering my people? And what are we doing? And we're clearing cellular memory. And that really kind of began the journey of how do we access that in more of a palatable Western way, because not everyone wants to sit in the jungle and get eaten by bugs and vomit for 12 hours.
You guys don't at home? You don't want to go through that? That doesn't sound good.
I mean, that's a big story here in California. Everybody's sitting in ayahuasca ceremonies now. But how can we provide that space?
Yeah. Interesting. So that was the incepted experience that you're trying to share with modern technology. Is that right? Is there a particular track or something that really speaks to that experience I know you described sort of the jungle sounds, and you do have an incredible jungle things. What was
Abundance.
it? Abundance. You have cell cleanser.
Cell cleanser, yeah.
You know, is there one in particular that really this trip really inspired you to make?
Great question. So this was in 2004. I've been to Peru with Manu 4 times. I've led 4 trips with him. We went on this trip, and just to kind of bring it full circle, I've kind of brought it full circle. Right? I'm going to take another dimensional circle, if I may.
It's like the tree of life or something?
Yeah, tree of life, exactly.
All right.
Because that's the whole thing about circles, is it's 2D. A 3D circle is a sphere.
Okay.
And in the sphere, that's quantum physics. There's infinite potentialities within all of that space. So I just shared with you one-dimensional experience. I want to share with you another, if I may.
I would love to understand the difference. So yeah, please do.
So I come back from this trip. Manu and I'm not sure how much we totally connected on that trip, but we spent this trip together. And when he came back, he said to me, would you be interested in doing some tag team healing with me? And I said, what does that mean? And he came to my office, and I was working with these you asked me about tracks, and I'd like to answer that question about the tracks, but this predated, I didn't make my first album until 2007.
Okay, so 3 years later.
So this predated all of this. And at the time I was using these little energy vials, these little glass tubes that had water in them.
Okay.
And in these glass tubes just contain energetic signatures, a vibrational resonance. And I would put them in your field, and we'd muscle test that and reprogram your body. And interestingly enough, that kind of came out, I elevated that out of the true traditional neuromodulation technique, which you would speak. They call them therapeutic intentional scripts. You would read these scripts and reprogram the body using your words through these scripts. And it was really it was a little too exhausting, it was a little too fluffy of the situation. And so I converted those scripts into these vials, and I made essentially a biofeedback system.
Okay, so you basically came back from this, and like, how do I bring this back into modern society that we can enjoy? You then looked at kind of all the different modalities that were out there, and you already had your own practice going. And so you sort of did your research, and then you started innovating, right? It sounds like, because you saw that there's these scripts you could say, but then you said it sort of was too exhausting for the patient.
Exhausting, and the patients were kind of like, what are you saying? Because we would go through, and I would just I would just read it to myself, because it has nothing to do with you.
Oh, interesting.
It has nothing to do with you.
That would freak me out if a doctor was like,
exactly.
Not you. Well, what are you doing?
But it worked really well.
Mm.
And that's why I put them in the vials, because it wasn't palatable for the patient.
Mm.
For that exact reason. And it was hard on me, because 80% of my treatment was me saying the same thing over and over again, and I'd modify the last 20%. It wasn't an efficient way of time. Okay. So I put them into these vials.
Okay, so explain how that can happen. How can you say something and then put it in a vial and it has the same effect?
I've never actually shared this information in a public forum before.
I mean, we can keep it secret.
No, we can.
Yeah.
But it's really easy.
Okay.
And I told you about the woman whose clinic that I bought when she moved to Australia.
Yeah.
I met her at my first ever training that I did in San Diego back in 2000.
Okay.
And we hit it off. And she lived in Denver. And she was actually a competitor of the doctor that sent me to San Diego to learn this technique. They were direct competitors. And we ended up hitting it off, and she became my first mentor.
Okay.
And it was really interesting, because she was making her own vials, and I said, how do you do that? And she said, and I don't remember exactly, but I remember I vividly remember being in her living room, and she started muscle testing me, and she said, I don't remember exactly what it was. I remember the experience, I don't remember, but she asked me to think something, and into the vial.
Mm.
And then hold it in your hand and muscle test it, and it worked.
Wow.
And at that point, I started making my own vials.
Interesting. Is it similar to kind of like Dr. Emoto's work of like, you know, how thoughts and energy can impact water?
I started putting my own intention into water.
Mm.
And it worked really well.
What do you mean it worked? How
Meaning whatever I used it for, I started programming people's nervous system through that process.
How would you, so you're like, oh, you have this issue. Walk me through like how you would do that.
So picture having a computer. And you go into a computer and you have all these little data samples, right?
Okay.
And you're on and you're like, tell me what's going on with you. And you're clicking the buttons. I have this, and this, and this,
Sure.
whatever it is. And then, especially with our computer, you know, with our apps now, they have all kinds of things that you can, you know, kind of broadcast sounds and stuff through your body. But before that, what's really happening? And you can just put a field, you can just put, let's go back, let me take it back a step.
Mm-hmm.
What are you? Who are you as a human?
You mean like skin and nails and bones and organs and liquids, and I got blood vessels, and I got a name, a personality. You know, I think if you keep going further, I got, you know, maybe.
What if you go in the other direction?
Big picture?
No, bigger, inward. I feel like you were kind of starting to go
Okay, so go
outward.
inward.
Yeah, so yeah.
All right,
seven
so
and all that.
like zooming in, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's like molecules.
Okay.
And electrons and protons.
For awesome.
And, you know, I think even smaller than that, I'm sure there's quarks, and I think smaller than that, I think it's just like energy or something.
Exactly. So you totally brought it down, and we started this conversation. We started this, how I said, I want to bring it full circle, and I want to go into another full circle, and I said a two-dimensional circle is a circle, and then a three-dimensional circle is a sphere.
Sure, I remember that.
That sphere is electron shells. These are spinning electrons.
What are
Around
spinning
it.
electrons?
When you're going down into all these little spinning into the inner part of this energy, what you're talking about, if we back it out a little bit into the nucleus, we have protons and neutrons as a nucleus, and then spinning around that are electrons. And I talked about this last week when we talked about creating interdimensional portals.
Nice. I think we should all check that out if we haven't seen that already.
If you haven't seen last week's episode, please go to Facebook Live and watch episode 2, How to Create Interdimensional Portals. What's
nothing. I may or may not have watched your last.
Oh, you didn't watch the episode? That's okay, but that's why it's archived.
Yeah, that's true. Great content here.
And
okay, so then you got your energy. Everything's energy. Okay, vials. You say something from vials.
well, no, we got to go back to the electrons. So they're spinning, and they create a field. And in that field, there's an infinite. They're spinning electrons around this nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
And they jump from shell to shell. There's all these different levels that these electrons can move through. And every time they do it, they release this spark. It's called photonic emission. Energy is released and there's a spark. And we are a combination of countless numbers of these sparks.
Okay.
And that is basically who we are. That's our energetic expression in this heightened light body. And that is what we create. That's our aura. That's our field. That's our energy field.
How big is that energy field?
I mean, it depends who you talk to. You know, people, you could feel when you walk into a room with people. Some people walk in, you know.
In your field?
You tell me.
I mean, I can feel your.
Where do you feel it?
Yeah.
Pack it up. Tell me where you.
I feel like you're like extending it. I don't know.
Well, let's put it this way. When we were going to sit down here, remember, we were all like, get closer, and you're like, oh my God, you're in my field, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
I've called that my space. And
that's
kind
just
of the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because some people you really want in your space, you're in an intimate relationship, and then there's others you just can't don't want to have in your space.
Interesting. Okay.
So now you are the vial.
I'm a vial?
You're the Clifton vial. And it's very unique to you because you're a compilation of your personality and of your traumas and of your relationships and of your liver, of your kidneys, of your spinning electrons, of your thoughts, of your intentions. And this makes...
So I'm just a giant vial.
You're just a giant vial.
You're a giant vial.
I'm just a giant vial.
You're a giant vial.
And Dave's a giant vial.
Behind the camera, but you're a
I
giant
really want
vial.
to bring Dave into this after we bring Zach, because I'm sure there's some really... Do you have some great questions to ask?
Maybe. I'm a vial.
You're a vial.
You're the vial. And that vial just tried the vibe for the first time.
We want to talk about that.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely get to that. But let's get the sphere.
So we have this, so all I'm taking with these vials, okay, it goes back to an energetic imprinted into the vial.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm now is taking is that energy and putting it into your energy. That's it. That's it. It's just that simple. And then we're muscle testing. And your body is saying, what does this energy mean?
Okay.
And your body is saying yes or no. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, your body is constantly saying, what does this input mean, yes or no? And are you living in a yes universe, or are you getting yes, 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 yes? Or are you living in a no universe and getting chemistry that's saying no, 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 no? And when people would come to me, they're usually living in no universes with all kinds of chemistry that's expliciting no universes to them, which is allergies and inflammation and pain and
So it's
hormones.
binary. It's that simple, huh? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
Well,
Okay.
it's really interesting because they started talking about these new trinary codes, which there's maybes, and they're quantum computers. That's for another episode.
Okay.
Let's not get into that.
Earmark that. Okay.
Yeah. But we're here.
See, I was trying to make a joke. He was like, well, actually, technically.
I'm sorry.
He's making a very valid point here, Clifton. So we'll get to that. And I'm like, okay, wow.
You're the Ivy League, MBA guy. I'm trying to just be. Really
I'm just the
intellectual.
average Joe who's read your book and it's fascinating and just keeping up with your story because I mean you put a lot of that in your book. I mean, Primal Resonance, which is a great book, and I think now's a great plug for it. Discover the secrets of health, vitality, and optimal human performance.
This is the combination of 16 years of my clinical practice and probably 40 years of my life. And when I wanted to write this, I was really big into biofeedback. And most of this book is actually about my journey through biofeedback.
So that happened after all of this or before?
This was many years after. I mean, this
Okay.
book came out in 2014, so like 10 years after I went to Peru for the first time.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got the vial. Everyone's a vial. You're saying things into vials.
Yeah.
And it's working. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
And I started making vials. I had boxes of these. I had like 1,000 of them. And I started getting lists and making all kinds of vials for infectious agents and emotions and allergens and anything. And then I started this is really never shared before information. I had literally started imprinting programs into vials.
What do you mean programs?
Like I would, instead of just taking cat, I would ask the body if it would be safe to whatever it would be.
Okay.
And I'd put them together, and the body would give me an answer, and then I'd reprogram that. And I literally was using a computer. I was using the biological computer.
It seems like you're treating me like I'm a computer.
You are? Yeah, I was reprogramming a computer. So going back to my news.
Is this Westworld? Are we in Westworld right now?
This was Schwartz World.
Schwartz World, okay.
Yeah, this was Schwartz
So
World.
you put the vial in, but then you take it out, and it
Put it in your field,
Uh-huh.
and then we would just stimulate it through the nervous system and have you do some anchoring exercises, and then recheck. And so my new came into town, and he said, "Let's do some time."
Okay, real quick though. So when you put it in,
okay.
but then you take it out, how does it still? Aren't you just taking out that frequency from me, or?
It's just a signature, and then we're anchoring it into your body. So you'd hold it in your hands. We do the treatment, and then so you would hold them, and then I'd lock in the treatment.
Oh,
and then
gotcha.
I would
Okay, so
say
there's like
that.
a locking in mechanism.
Yeah, there's a locking
like a
mechanism.
copy and paste.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Keep going.
Download. Yeah. And it worked.
Wow.
Like really well. This was my practice. This is how my patients would come to me. This is what they get.
Now, is this like common, or is this like
Right.
a field of
It's kinesiology.
bio speaking?
People do them in different ways. You know, there's a whole industry, I think, kind of around it. I don't know how much people are really doing it. This is what I did.
Okay.
This is what my mentor showed me. And
it sounds really cool, by the way. So
in fact, it's really there's an interesting little synchronicity that's happening. When I met her, my mentor, back in 2004, which predated this by 4 years, she was using this radionics device. Have you ever heard of radionics?
no.
Radionics is a machine, and basically what it does is it broadcasts this wave. If a wave looks like this, it creates the opposite wave.
Okay.
And it feeds it back, and it works off of pictures. Like, you can take a picture
Okay.
of, like, people do farming with this. You can do remote healing with this. And they have these wells, and these are in hospitals all over Germany and Austria. They're radionics hospitals. This is very well accepted medicine
In Germany.
in Germany and Austria and Europe, for sure. Really interesting. And she introduced me to this radionics mat, and I started reading books about it, and I didn't know anything about it. And you would lay on this mat, and you had these imprinting wells, you had these little switches, and we would do the treatment. And normally with this early allergy treatment that I would do, you would have to avoid the substance for 24 hours for the body to circle through the Chinese clock sequence. And we would able to neutralize it in 2 minutes.
With the
radionics.
With the radionics, okay.
You'd lay on it, you'd flip a switch, put it in the well, they'd lay on it, and it'd download into the body. And so I did that for many years.
So you went from vials to radionics, or
It's kind of a combination. This was all at the same time.
Wow, so you're experimenting with so many different.
Yeah, these were the early days. This was 2000.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, when I bought her clinic and I integrated into my clinic, I was using this machine, and because of FDA regulations, they wanted to get away from the machines. But I knew what the machine was doing.
Okay.
So as an experiment, I made a vial with a program of what the machine was doing.
Okay.
So instead of having to lay on the mat, I just put that programmed vial in with the treatment and then just stimulate down their mat, and I got rid of the machine.
Wow.
That was like a trippy moment. And I said, let me do an experiment. Let me see if this would work. And it totally worked. And so the synchronicity of this is, I've moved since then.
Okay.
I live here. This was Denver, Colorado. I sold 90% of my stuff, and I moved to California back in 2015. And I took that, I haven't used that machine in years, but it's an amazing radionics machine, what it can do, and I moved with it. And I haven't even used it. And I moved it into my apartment, and it's all set up.
Sounds like a.
And I still don't use it.
Why not?
Because I like the machines I'm using better.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's talk about those.
But here's what's interesting. I literally just moved it out of my apartment today, and it's in the back of my car, and I was going to put it in storage.
Wow.
Yeah. And now we're having a conversation about this radionics technology.
Yeah.
So I think this ties back into this modern technology from ancient wisdom. We've really done this gamut. And it's all based off the same principles of what are the core factors necessary for making a deep healing process? What are the ingredients?
Okay, so you had the ayahuasca ceremony.
And let's talk about the ingredients.
Okay.
You had a plant, okay? So you have two plants that they boil down and they make a concoction. That's called ayahuasca.
Okay.
And it's a vine and a root that don't even grow together, and they're processed together. And then this particular shaman added in some like liver cleansers and a couple other different things in it, made his own concoction. And that's the carrier. That's the delivery system. But then the activator, he would put his intention into it through his voice, frequency. resonance and intention.
Interesting.
He would use the fire element to activate it and blow his mana into. He breathed life into this activated medicine. He would drink it.
Okay, now you're making it actually seem like there's logic to it.
This is the science.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
And this is what I was getting. I was like, I get what he's doing.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. And so you're starting to almost reverse engineer the ayahuasca experience. Back in Colorado, or
this was in Peru.
Peru.
No, this was like sitting there in.
Live.
And I was like, okay, I get what's happening. And then we drank, and we had an experience. And I always got all kinds of major downloads, like science downloads when I do ayahuasca. I get whenever I take medicine, I get all kinds of crazy scientific downloads.
Gotcha.
So these are the ingredients.
Wow. I didn't know that you. This is fascinating. Okay, so you tried all these different modalities, and were you always trying to get back to that ayahuasca experience, or were you just seeing what was out there and just playing with it to get to there, or?
The radionics experience had predated me drinking ayahuasca by 4 years.
Oh, so you had already been down.
I'd already doing it. Yeah, this was already happening, and I was using the vials.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using vials since 2000. But interesting, I didn't take any vials with me. I took the therapeutic intentional scripts. And this is another little story that I haven't shared with many people that happened on that first trip. I was kind of the add-on, that Manu met, and there was a lot of these healers. There's a lot of healers. There was a shaman, and a lot of those guys they knew each other, and nobody really knew me. I guess I don't think I even really knew me.
Well, let's get existential for a second.
Yeah.
Does anyone really know?
Does everyone know
anybody?
anybody?
Point of life. Anyway, back to now.
So I'm in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
It's after an ayahuasca session. It might have been after. We were there for a couple of days. We were drinking throughout the time, and there was a girl that I met that lived in Denver who a week before we left on a trip, her sister killed herself, and she called her sister, the girl went on the trip, right before she did it, and her sister was getting massage and missed the phone call. And
wow.
Yeah, like super intense. And so she went on the trip and was here during this, and we all, everybody knew what was going on. So she drank and didn't really have any experience. She didn't have any hallucinations, didn't have any visuals, didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she got really sick, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They had the shaman in there working on her, and they had all these people doing all these things with her, and for 24 hours, and she was just these, candlelight stuff. And 4 o'clock in the morning, that's right, I did a session with her. She asked me if I could do a session with her, and I did my therapeutic intentional script NFT session with her, and she had a reaction which I knew exactly how to fix.
Wow.
Because
maybe that's why you were there.
Well, that's what I did. Well, I treated her, and then she had a reaction, and everybody was working, and nobody really knew what to do. And I said, "Do you want me to?"
So do you feel like this was one standard script that the shaman gives, and then everyone has different reactions to it?
No, this was she saw me, and I think it all just triggered. It was just a series of. It was alchemy. It was just the series of everything.
You're vital in that experience.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
And so I remember going in. At 4 in the morning, they knocked on my door and they said, "We want to call you in to see if there's anything you can do." And this was just a really surreal moment for me. It was just 4 in the morning in the middle of the jungle. I went into her little shack, and I broke out my scripts, my therapeutic intentional scripts. And I remember taking notes on. I have this at my house. I have this folder with all the notes of all the people I treated on this trip. It's like an archive.
Wow.
And I'm reading under candlelight because I can barely read it, and I'm treating her.
Now, are these scripts like words or
Yeah.
sound? Okay, like English words?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she gets up and her headache goes away, and she walks outside.
This is trippy. Wow. Okay. So here you are, your first shamanic ayahuasca experience, and then in a way you were also the shaman helping a woman with her
early
experience.
days.
Wow.
And I feel like that kind of comes back to like, a shaman. Like who's a shaman? Like you're like a shaman by is a teacher, is a healer. And you might not. I would look at you, as a full-on shaman, as a financial shaman.
I appreciate that. Now I have far more context for it. It's great.
Because when you've been working, if just as my plug, if I can plug you.
Sure.
The Clifton Smith. As much as I have an art for really healing, for working with people, I see people interdimensionally. Things in 2D sometimes don't really line up in my world.
Doesn't sound like anything 2D.
Yeah. And so for you to be able to help me, with things like my finances and getting me dialed in with, putting these things together, you're healing a part of me. And you're not just doing it for me, you're actually taking me through a conscious experience. You're taking me through a journey, a shamanic journey.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you recognizing that. Yeah, because I've done this for many other entrepreneurs, and as I've gone on my own spiritual path, I've understood why sometimes there's blockages, especially to some of the most profound, conscious shifting innovators out there. And there's sort of the textbook approach, the MBA approach, or the accelerator approach, where it's all pretty much logic driven. But as you know, the work you've done and you're doing is that there's layers to it. It's not just logic, it's emotion, it's spiritual, it's trauma. And so then, how can you give an entrepreneur like that full service? Because a pitch deck isn't just a pitch deck. A business plan is not just a business plan. It's literally a self-awakening tool, because you're basically creating to the universe what it is you feel is inside of you. And you create it with a specific intention. You're talking about intention. And with people like you, your intention for bioharmonic technologies is so high, like it's so pure, that I'm able to see how and why certain things are unfolding in sort of the business creation process, which, you're right, it's alchemy, right? How do you get one individual to work with multiple individuals to feel whole in a whole separate entity that is called bioharmonic technology? You're basically birthing, this energetic baby of yours that you're bringing in different components with different vials. We have incredible people on the team, and their presence in a meeting will shift the conversation or shift the mood or the energy. And so, while it may just be 12 or 13 slides on a pitch deck, there's so many more layers to what's going on. And you've just been incredible through that process, holding space for me to understand and actually recognize deeper levels of what you mean by saying a shaman, and alchemy. And I'm just so pumped. As you said, thank goodness for skill sets that I bring, because what you're doing at Bioharmonic Technologies is revolutionary. You have every single business model imaginable, and then you're shifting some as well. And when you first talked to me about that, I'm like, this is just not going to work. Textbook MBA, wait, you want to do this and this and this and this and this and this? No, that's impossible, is what they teach you in school, and but then I observed kind of the formation and the growth. We've connected on, business-focused things, and I've seen you work at events and with people, and it's working. You're actually doing it, and so it's no longer my skill set to say no, as you say yes, but understand how to turn what your intention is into something that translates into the business world. Because while you are so multidimensional, this company is so multidimensional, there's going to be people you interact with who exist on a fairly linear perspective. And so how can you have that great API, that interface of talking about what Bioharmonic Technologies does, to people who may not have that sort of spiritual development that is encapsulated by basically everything you say. When you talk about the vibes, when you talk about the evolution, say it.
You say it. The vibroacoustic.
Vibroacoustic.
Evolution.
Revolution. Like, besides that sounding cool and like
vibroacoustic evolution revolution.
Like, I think every single word of those can be like dissected, and be like an hour-long lecture.
Well, we're going to do an hour-long lecture, but vibroacoustic, that's the industry. Vibrational sound, which is the foundation of the vibe systems. Evolution. This is a movement of to evolve or to elevate humanity, and it's a revolution. It's a movement, and it's the vibroacoustic evolution revolution.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's awesome because you basically are drilling it down to vibroacoustics of the shaman singing into, saying and activating the ayahuasca. So vibroacoustic, right? Evolution. You're basically taking those principles and those core methodologies, and you're bringing it into the modern world, and you're using that for a revolution, to revolutionize how we view ourselves, so that we can harmonize humanity and elevate the frequency of the world.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well done, gentlemen. We're still recording, but the hour is up. Wanted to let you know that. So I don't.
Yeah, I think we're gonna just keep going.
Love it.
Yeah. In fact, what if we bring in Dave?
Yeah, come on in, Dave.
I'm really interested to get.
Wow.
Come on in.
Shaman.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Should we bring in another chair? Or what would be the...
Yeah, let's see if we can...
So...
Be a tight fit. I don't know if we'll all fit.
Why'd you sit? Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd love to introduce Dave Kamens.
It's true. We just met. And what a pleasure. I mean...
We just met like an hour ago.
8 seconds ago, I was in the bed. The vibes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
It matters not.
Okay.
What matters is what happened to me.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
Okay.
At this moment, we can get into what I do and what I'm about and who I am and where I'm from at some point. But
tell me about your vial. Who is your vial?
My vial. I've been described as vile, but probably not to my face. No, there's...
tell me about your experience then.
I'm described, sometimes you know who you are by what others say about you. So one of the key things that comes up a lot is mellow. You're really mellow, Dave. You're mellow. And I think I'm an excitable young boy. I mean, that's what I feel inside.
That's the energy I get off of you.
That's what I feel inside. But I think in crazy moments, I can give off this mellow because I've seen a lot, done a lot. I know that if you're calm in a storm, you'll probably get through it better. And what I have to share with you is, I don't know what your business is about. I don't even know what these 6 things or the 6 prongs or whatever it is that you guys were talking about that this is.
Okay.
But whatever vibes is, that bed that I was on with the headphones and the lights and the vibrations, that is revolutionary. That's stuff that I thought of my DMT experience.
I have a sonic DMT track, actually.
Really?
Yeah. You listen to the Shamanic Journey anti-inflammatory detox track.
No, I am also a producer, and you're out of the shot.
Oh.
So I'm always producing.
Oh, that's right. We're supposed
That is
to
one thing I'm always doing. I'm always producing.
See, your field was like, your energy field is
pushing you away.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you were saying you have this other track that's inspired by ayahuasca. So DMT that I experienced, is the best way I can put it. It's sort of the active ingredient, and apparently everybody experiences DMT at birth.
Yeah.
And women experience it when they give birth.
Mm.
So women get that extra few chances, assuming they have kids.
Yeah.
So I haven't done ayahuasca, but wow, that DMT, that first 28 seconds or so, is where this took me for a fairly long time.
Wow.
And then my analytical side started making comparisons. Isn't that sad? That I couldn't just stay in it. so I started, what is this like? And as I said when I got up, and that's the only time we've really rapped, was a one-way reaction from what I went through. I encourage anyone with any stuff, any part of what ayahuasca and DMT is, you're right, that scraping you talked about, soul scraping. This is almost a soul relaxation and a complete realization of what's important. Because that's key, isn't it? Is just get rid of the noise. And what you do is provide light, noise, energy, vibrations.
Light, sound, frequency, and vibration. And the only reason I do that is because it's in complete alignment with the laws of nature.
Mm-hmm.
I asked myself a question many years ago, and I said, if I was going to make it, because it all comes down to delivery system. Everything is about a delivery system.
Right.
And I said, what's the best delivery system for shifting and influencing chemistry? And when I thought about putting something in my mouth, you're kind of like under, it's kind of like down here, because it's got to go, it's got to break down in your saliva and then into your stomach acid, and then it like dissipates into like your bloodstream, and then you only have like a little bit of this left, and then that finally interacts with chemistry, with your like signal transduction, and it's like a little bit, and you have to keep doing it. It's very inefficient, and
kind of like bad drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then I said, well, what's a better delivery system?
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about like sublingual or some other things, but then really sound like frequency. So I started researching, and this is in my book,
and
Primal Resonance, Discover the Secrets.
So did you, tell me about that layering. Okay. So what did you start with? Because you probably didn't say all 4 of those at once, or did you?
Sound, light, frequency, vibration?
Yeah.
So there was a couple.
So you were thinking, okay, not internal, external.
Well, okay, so where it began was music. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was 2 things. And I talk about this in my book, and there was, as I was doing my research, and it's an interesting process, because a lot of this stuff was theories that I just operated out of my practice, and I just saw amazing results every day. So I kind of would just get these, I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go to conferences and other things and this and that. I read books, and it all just seemed to line up.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really researched it. I never really dug into it until I started writing my book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fantastic, because all this stuff, when I started researching it, it was all right there. And what I started looking at was what am I really influencing? And there was a couple of really profound books that made major changes in my life. One was written by this gentleman, Dr. James Oshman, and it's called the Scientific Basis of Energy Medicine, and it's the most amazing cure for insomnia.
Okay.
What's that?
It's a little joke. I'm not sure.
Oh, as in like the book itself? Oh, I thought it was actually a cure.
See, I just reversed the. You're trying to pop a joke to it.
Yeah.
Now it's a joke.
Yeah.
All right, I'm with you. So that
super incredible book.
Yes.
Well, super incredible book. The content in that book, and it talked a lot about the living connective tissue matrix and the interaction with water and the way that interacts and the way that really changed my life. I have no idea what year it was that I wrote that. I'm sure I still have it on my bookshelf. And then I started thinking about signal transduction, like how do our cells replicate, and then how do our cells communicate? Like those are
that's key.
Those are key things.
Life.
Yeah, this is life. How our cells replicate. And as I started just studying, and I was like, what are the initiating material? Like, what are the biological materials that make these things? And when you think about some mitosis, signal like how our cells replicate, we all remember when we were like little kids in school, they had The Miracle of Life, like that movie about giving birth. And it's like, it's a miracle of life, and how a sperm fertilizes the egg, and then it goes from 1 cell to 2 cells to 4 cells to 6, and it starts kind of actually going, and it's a quote unquote miracle. But what's the science?
Right.
So I started digging into that of replication, and what we see, the process, there's very specific tissue. There's very specific tissue, initiating material that's called microfilaments, microtubules, and intermediate tubules.
Wow.
And these are common things. Like, this is not Dr. Schwartz's crazy. This is in every medical textbook.
Okay.
And
work me back to how the four came together now.
What for?
The feelings from the bed, the combination of.
Okay, sound, light, frequency, and vibration.
Thank you.
So, well, I'm getting to it.
All
The
right.
cells gotta come together.
All right.
Come together.
Good.
Because what those materials do. So the initiating materials, what they do is they interact with your environment. They interpret your environment through vibrational resonance.
Okay.
That's what they do.
All right.
So then I started asking myself, okay, well, if vibrational resonance interacts with them, then what kind of things can I use to vibrate them? Sound, light, frequency, and vibration. And that's where it started. And so I did an experiment using music.
Okay.
And that
so
started.
the sound I get, right? I get that.
And so you got to remember, though, the part that preceded all this was these vials. Because at this point, I mean, I'm going to say this is 2006 or 7. I mean, so I've been doing this for 7 years. I mean, this is every day of taking this glass vial, putting it into your energy field, muscle testing, reprogramming, and locking it in, and sending my patients on their way, and then coming back and being, oh, by the way, I'm better.
Yeah.
Like long term, and nobody can do that. So that's really, from that foundation, really was now like I was looking for another delivery system. Because I was doing that because I was just me in private practice. I started opening up a larger practice, and I was going to bring in associates, and I was looking for another way of delivering the medicine other than just this 1,000 vials of Dr. Schwartz crazy vials that I had.
2 quick questions about those vials. 1, how did you physically make them? How long did it take, and how did you physically do that?
How long did it take to make the whole boxes, or to make one vial?
One vial. It's okay.
5 to 10 seconds.
5 to 10 seconds. And did you speak into it?
You're asking me. I would.
I know I want to peel back the onion. Is it too much? Is it too inside?
No.
Is it too easy?
Ask me the question. Too easy. Too easy to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought.
And we can all do it.
Right.
And we all do it. And I talk about this in my book. The problem is
really intention, isn't it?
They're intentional vials. And so when Dr. Emoto made it on the scene, you know who Dr. Emoto is?
No.
Dr. Emoto, he wrote books called Messages in Water. And he was a naturopathic doctor, I think the naturopathic doctor in Japan, that would do his experiments with, he would take water and he would freeze them and cut them and look them under a microscope, and depending on, he would expose them to intention, or he would take it out of polluted oceans, or, different things.
Right.
And he would see what the crystals look like, and if it was like love, they were like super beautiful, and if it was like hate, it was like all this gnarly, all gnarly. And he published books on these things, and he was the one that popularized that. And I don't know what year this was. But there was a movie that came out that brought him on the scene called What Belief Do We Know? And it was a documentary put out about quantum physics and the power of intention. And he probably had the most famous scene. Have you heard of Joe Dispenza?
No.
Joe Dispenza. All these people became famous because of this movie.
Okay.
And I remember sitting in the theater with my girlfriend at the time, and there was the infamous Dr. Emoto scene. It was the scene of, they were in a subway, and they had all these pictures of these crystals on the walls in the subway, and it said like love and blessings and healing and all this, and then the woman, she got on the subway, and they said, if this is what can happen in water, imagine what it looks like in your body. And my girlfriend looked at me and she goes, that's what you do. And I was just staring at the screen, and I said, that is what I do. And now it's in a movie, and life is never going to be the same. And life has never been the same. And so the bigger question, the bigger magic is not about me making these vials. The bigger magic is about how are we programming our own vials?
Right. But somebody had to do it. Somebody had to step over the edge and say, this is a vial with an intention, and I'm going to show scientifically that there are changes taking place. You've done that. Give yourself a little credit. No matter where it came from, you had to put together the studies and the thought to do so. Question, can you duplicate a vial without speaking into another one?
So you're asking really interesting questions. And these were the things that I was going through. So the answer is yes. Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
And what I was actually doing, because this was the conversation I had to have with myself, was I was opening this large center.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity to either reproduce my Dr. Schwartz alchemy, and the truth of the matter, I was building these. I mean, this was 2000, so this was like a 7-year journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what they were. Did I know exactly what was in them anywhere? No. Did I keep a lot of my scripts? Yes. I kept a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
It was really amazing when I was moving. You know, what I kept and what I kind of let go of.
Right.
But what I said to myself is, this is not sustainable. I really didn't have the time. Because what was more difficult than making the vials was making the labels for the vials. And cutting them and putting them on. Like, that was the hard part.
Tiny vials.
Yeah, and it was like, so I had a whole system, but for many years, I had the system down, and it was great because, you know, I was a new doctor, I had like a huge budget, but it opened me up to really having lots of access. Like, I no longer was living in a no world, like, oh, I need to buy that. And there's companies out there that sell vials.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and these were friends of mine, and I had their catalog, and they were like, here's everything that's in this kit, and you could buy that. And also, I'd like to state for the record, there's other ways of imprinting into vials.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Radionics, that we talked about, is another way. There's biofeedback systems that work with imprinting. I have a biofeedback machine that I developed, and it had an imprinting well, and we would imprint into that, and that made things a lot easier. So there's many ways of doing it. And my standard answer that I would tell people when they say, how do you do this? I said, there's many ways.
Okay. Where can someone find their way onto the experience that I had?
They can contact Bioharmonic Technologies. Excuse me, they can contact Bioharmonic Technologies.
Okay.
www.bioharmonictechnologies.com.
Bioharmonictechnologies.com.
On your phone, you can actually scan this QR code. It takes you right to our website. And so there's a couple different things during this vibroacoustic evolution revolution that we're leading. This is a revolution of self-care and self-empowerment. And one of the biggest challenges that I've been going through is, this was the Dr. Schwartz show.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I reproduce Dr. Schwartz? So I started making a biofeedback machine. And now we have these beds that you lay on.
Mm-hmm.
These they're called vibe systems.
Yes.
They're vibrational, independent body
Energy.
Enhancement
systems. Okay. And it's that new. We still don't have all the words.
We literally just coined that phrase like 2 hours ago.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
This is evolving right in front of our eyes. And I run, don't walk, to find out more about this. This will change your world.
Thank you.
It will. Fantastic.
That's the only reason we're doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman I met, and she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I harmonize humanity, and I raise the vibration of the planet using sound, light, and frequency technologies." And she goes, "Oh, that's kind of vague. Why don't you be a little more specific?" And I said, "How so?" And she goes, "Well, like, how do you do that?" I said, "I make these devices that you lay on, and they harmonize you, and they raise your vibration, and through sound, light, and frequency." And she goes, "Oh, that's what you just said." I said, "I know."
Mm. Let me ask you. What do you expect? What in your experience will be my takeaway? What will change tonight, tomorrow, through what happened to me earlier, which was 20 minutes on the bed?
You were on for about 10 minutes.
10
We had
minutes.
to go on screen here.
Okay.
You were on
Good
for...
fade then. I thought whoever faded that.
I faded it out.
Well done.
Thank you.
DJing that hard.
In fact, I actually thought I went a little too fast.
No, good fade.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. What's
No.
the takeaway afterwards? Because during Incredible Trip, right? What have you found that is changed?
We're going to post this on another Facebook, but we have been collecting scientific data using something called heart rate variability.
Wow. I wanted to talk about heart rate during it. Go.
So you're familiar with heart rate variability?
Yes, and what happened to me, physically during
With your heart rate?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like
but
what?
go ahead, your data.
So we have data we started doing before and afters.
Mm-hmm.
And we are still interpreting the data, but I will tell you what we see is, first of all, everybody changes.
Mm-hmm.
Most of all the people have this major change, like this profound physiological change that we see. And then we see people that are having, like there's a woman that bought one of our technologies. She's a cranial sacral shaman, and she practices shamanic medicine and does cranial sacral. I mean, she's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She gets off and she starts crying.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she literally felt all the DNA in her body just recoded itself. Who says that?
Right.
And she actually listened to the same track that you listen to. And so...
I'm with her. I mean, in a way, I won't go that far, but I can see where she felt that.
So she bought a vibe system from me, and now she's in Brazil, and she's doing her shamanic practice. So your takeaway is two things. There's an experience. What I really like about this is we live in an experience. People want to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
So my biofeedback system is life-changing, but it's very subtle. And you would come in, and you might not feel anything, and you come back and be like, oh, by the way, I slept great. Or, by the way, my pain's gone. Or, by the way, I don't have a headache. Subtle. Super effective, but subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, wait, how much? That's $150, But
Right.
then they come back and go, okay, I'm in. With this, even if you get nothing out of it, you leave with a 20-minute vibratory journey.
Yeah.
At the very lowest level,
Mm-hmm.
everybody leaves with a goodie bag.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. What I know is happening is we're putting you in a field of harmonic resonant music with a very specialized formulation process that I've been perfecting, working on since 2007. And all these programs are made for something very specific. And we see reproducible experiences over and over and over again.
Like the vibe. So the music.
Now the music is the vibe. The programs.
How about the vibrations?
What about it?
In other words, how much of it is customized for what you want to do?
The vibration is music active. The music is mixed for that vibration.
Interesting.
So the vibration experience is mixed into the music. The beds are music activated.
And is the light change per vial?
So we're using
per experience.
So that's a great question. So the lights we're working on are working with specific. So there's two parts. There's color. So we're receiving a color experience, which has its own inherent physiological frequencies. Then there's a pulsation ratio, and on and off, and those are being pulsed through this machine, solfeggio and dosier frequencies. And if you don't know what that means, just know that I work with solfeggio and dosier frequencies in my music. So the only difference between frequency, between sound and light, is speed. So when we're slowing down light, it creates sound. And for frequencies are just proportionally in the sound spectrum, and that's very grounding and very physical. Where light is sped up and it's deeper penetrating and influences those electron shells we're talking about. So you can pulse frequencies through light or through sound or through light, and we put you in the field of that, and that's when we start getting what I call full spectrum therapy. And this is what I talked about last week in my show, interdimensional portal shifting. This is the applied science of this. This is the science of how do you shift and choose a dimension of your choosing and align yourself. So how you go into a vibe session may not be how you come out.
Mm-hmm. Studies are showing in fitness that the best way to work out is through intervals, right? Interval training is now pretty much proven to be, if done, what's now still up for debate is what are the intervals, right? So it's minute on, minute off, whatever. Related to that, the vibrations, the actual the feeling was interval. There was not a constant, because you think when you get onto a bed, it's a massage bed, it's a vibrating chair, or it's a thing. What I noticed, this is when perhaps some of the analytical, but also very much on the healing side, was how it was interval vibrations. And it had this sort of this fixing, a healing, a digging and then release, a dig and then release, which really brought on a relaxed state, which then brought my attention to the music and the light. I don't know, and what I'm so fascinated that you have combined all these factors. It is a revolution. Really, great job.
It's an evolutionary revolution.
It really is.
Thank you. Well, do you have any? Should we wrap it up?
I have 1,500 more questions. We'll do this another day.
Okay. I would love to invite you back for another Epic Vibes show, and let's dig through it.
It's Epic Vibes, everybody.
It's Epic Vibes with Dr. Vibe and with my new friend David.
That's right. And David Kamens. And don't leave out Clifton Smith,
we're
the
about
star
to
of the first hour.
Exactly. I'm just really blessed to have this platform of all the people that are able to come in. I just really want to allow this technology to get out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this company is really committed to that. And it's been a long road.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been kind of a lonely road. And what's nice is there's a lot of cool people showing up that want to party, that want to vibrate and harmonize with us. And that's my favorite part of this whole thing. So if you'd like to get more information, please contact me through this Facebook page, Bioharmonic Technologies. You can contact me personally through my personal Facebook page, Dr. Stephen Schwartz. We're on Instagram, Bioharmonic Technologies, and Dr. Stephen Schwartz DC. We have a whole channel on YouTube, Bioharmonic Technologies. And if you really want to see some awesome vintage Dr. Schwartz videos, like really incredible videos, go to Dr. Stephen Schwartz DC on YouTube. Go to my, I have 2 YouTube channels. I have videos of me in Peru. And I have all these amazing patient healing testimonials. It's worth a gander. So we will be here next Monday, 7 o'clock Pacific time, the Epic Vibe Show with Dr. Vibe. And stay tuned and for the rebroadcast if you missed today. Thank you so much, and I wish you the highest of oscillations.